What's the smartest thing you've seen someone do? At my high school, everyone knew this guy Luis was a drug dealer. He didn't even try to hide it. And practically the entire school knew the cops would pull him over for just existing. And whenever something drug-related happened at school, naturally, he was the first person they'd search. But every time they did, they never caught him with anything. They cut the lock off his locker almost every week to try and find his stash, but still nothing. One time, someone spread a rumor. He hid it in a locker that wasn't assigned to anyone. So the principal ordered that every lock in the entire school be cut and all lockers be searched. Still, they found nothing. Luis thought it was hilarious, and the administration had no idea what to do. Every time they'd catch kids with something, they would all say, "I bought this from Luis." Luis encouraged them to say it. They would search him every day, and he let them. They'd even bring cops to search his car, and he would laugh. While they found nothing, he was driving the cops and the principal insane. Until finally he figured it out. Over Christmas break, the principal's son asked him for shoes that had a secret compartment hidden in them. It immediately clicks. The first day back at school, as soon as the first bell went off, Luis was immediately called into the principal's office. He walks in, and the principal asks him to take off his shoes. He takes them, and it turns out his hunch was right. He had hidden compartments in his shoes, but still didn't find anything in them. I guess Luis is absolutely laughing his ass off at this point when the principal asks. I was never particularly close to Luis, but I was always fascinated by him. It was impossible not to be curious about how he managed to outsmart everyone with such ease. He had this calm, almost mocking demeanor that made it seem like nothing in the world could bother him. And the most intriguing part? He was always one step ahead. The entire school knew what he was up to, but no one could ever prove it. It was as if Luis had created a game, and everyone else, including the principal and even the police, were just pieces on the board he was controlling. After that last incident, when they cut the locks off every locker in the school and still found nothing, I started paying closer attention to him. How did he keep it all hidden? Luis wasn't exactly discreet. He laughed in the faces of those trying to catch him and even encouraged others to point fingers at him. Yet nothing ever went wrong for him. It was like he had some kind of invisible shield. The turning point came a few months after the locker incident. I had missed the bus one afternoon and was waiting outside the school for a ride. The campus was practically empty, the sun already starting to set. That's when I noticed the janitor, Mr. Rule, walking out of the admin building with a small bag in his hand. It wouldn't have caught my attention if Luis hadn't walked by just moments later, heading in the opposite direction as if nothing had happened. That small detail stuck with me. I had never considered the janitor as part of this puzzle, but suddenly, everything seemed a little more suspicious. From that point on, I started observing more closely. Luis had a routine that seemed ordinary on the surface. He rode the school bus every morning, played soccer during breaks, and rarely seemed bothered by classes. But something about his behavior intrigued me. Sometimes, he'd linger on the bus after everyone else had gotten off, taking a little longer than necessary. He always sat in the same seat, right at the back of the bus, and I began to notice that every now and then, he'd leave his backpack on the seat for a few moments before walking away. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was happening right under everyone's noses. So, one afternoon I decided to test my theory. I waited until the bus was empty, then went to the seat Luis always sat in. I reached under the bench, feeling around, and there was a makeshift compartment taped underneath. There was nothing inside at the time, but the space was clearly being used to hide something. My heart raced. Luis really was a genius. But there was still one big question. How was he getting the stuff out of the school? That's when I started paying attention to Mr. Raoul. He was always around, but no one ever seemed to notice him. He was an older man, someone who had worked at the school for decades. He had access to everything, but remained invisible to everyone. It suddenly made sense. Luis had found the perfect accomplice. The janitor was the last person anyone would suspect. Over the next few weeks, I put the pieces together. Every morning, Luis would leave something in that hidden compartment on the bus. At night, Raoul would retrieve it. But here's the part that blew my mind. Raoul wasn't taking it home or to some obvious hiding place. Instead, he was stashing it in a false compartment inside the principal's office. It was absolutely brilliant. Who in their right mind would think to look for contraband in the office of the very person trying to catch him? When I realized the truth, I was stunned. Luis had orchestrated a system so elaborate, so flawlessly executed, that it was practically impossible to unravel. He used the principal's obsession with catching him as a diversion, keeping everyone focused on him while the real operation happened right under their noses. And the best part? He did it all with a level of calmness that made it seem almost effortless. I never told anyone what I had discovered. Part of me found it too fascinating to ruin. Another part of me knew that exposing it would probably get me into trouble. After all, Luis wasn't just smart. He was dangerous in the sense that he never seemed to lose. But I couldn't stop wondering, how had he come up with all of this? Were there more people involved? Did Raul do it just for the money? Or was there something else? My curiosity only grew, and I knew that, at some point, I'd have to confront Luis about it. He was a mystery I couldn't resist trying to solve. And maybe, just maybe, he was waiting for someone like me to truly challenge his game. I spent weeks turning over everything I discovered, wondering if I should confront Luis. Part of me was genuinely fascinated. He was brilliant, there was no denying that. The entire operation was so intricately planned that I could barely believe a high school student could think of something so elaborate. But at the same time, another part of me was restless. Knowing too much felt dangerous, and with Luis, danger always seemed to be lurking nearby. One day, during lunch, I decided to approach him. He was sitting on the bleachers by the soccer field, laughing with a group of friends. I waited until they left, my heart pounding in my chest, before walking up to him. "Luis, I need to talk to you," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. He looked at me, still smiling, and gestured for me to go on. "I know about the operation," I said, lowering my voice. "I know about the compartment on the bus and Raul. I've got to say it's genius. Nobody would ever suspect it." For a moment, Luis's smile faded, and he stared at me with an intensity that made my stomach churn. I froze, wondering if I just made the biggest mistake of my life. Then, suddenly, he burst out laughing. It wasn't a friendly laugh. It was loud and mocking, echoing across the field as though I'd just told him the most ridiculous joke he'd ever heard. "You think you know something?" he said between chuckles, standing up. "You're funny, you know that? But listen, you should probably just mind your own business." He clapped me on the shoulder and walked away, still laughing as if my curiosity was nothing more than an amusing joke to him. I stood there, humiliated and confused. Maybe I had misunderstood everything, or maybe he was just trying to throw me off. Either way, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than I realized. A few hours later, as I was finishing up class, a random kid I barely knew approached me. "Luis wants to see you in the second-floor bathroom," he said casually. He said it's important. I hesitated. Every instinct in me screamed to ignore it, but my curiosity got the better of me. I made my way to the bathroom, my footsteps slow and hesitant. When I pushed open the door, the bathroom was empty. Before I could turn to leave, the door slammed shut behind me. Standing there was Raul, the janitor. He wasn't the quiet, harmless man I'd always assumed he was. His face was different now, hard, cruel, and calculated. His eyes, usually tired and kind, were cold and piercing. He stared at me for a moment before taking a step closer. Instinctively, I stepped back until I felt the edge of the sinks behind me. "I know what you're thinking," he said in a low, menacing voice. "And I'm going to give you some advice. Stay quiet. Stay away. You have no idea who you're dealing with." I was just curious," I stammered, trying to explain, but he cut me off. "Curiosity can be dangerous," he said with a thin, humorless smile. "If you don't keep your mouth shut, drugs will magically appear in your locker. And you know what happens next, don't you? You'll be arrested. Your family will be ashamed. Your life will be over." A cold sweat ran down my back. For a moment, I couldn't say anything. But then something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to let him intimidate me. "And if you keep threatening me," I said, my voice shaking but loud, "I'll go straight to the principal. I'll tell him everything. The bus compartment, the stash in the principal's office, all of it." Raul stopped and stared at me, but he didn't look worried. Instead, he gave me a small, contemptuous smile. "You think Luis is the one running this, don't you?" he said, almost amused. "You think he's the genius behind everything?" And in that moment, everything clicked. Luis wasn't the mastermind. He was the decoy, the distraction, the charming and confident face everyone focused on. Raul was the real genius, the quiet, invisible man who worked in the background, unnoticed and unsuspected. He had used Luis as a lightning rod to draw attention away from himself, and it had worked flawlessly. "You won't say a word," Raul continued, his tone calm but laced with menace. "Because you know no one will believe you. I've been here for years. Everyone trusts me. You, on the other hand, are just a nosy kid who doesn't know when to stop." He stepped back, still staring at me, then turned and walked out of the bathroom as if nothing had happened. I stayed there frozen, my mind racing. He was right, of course. No one would believe me. And even if they did, what would happen then? Raul wasn't just smart, he was dangerous. He had been running this entire operation under everyone's noses for years, and no one had even suspected him. But now I knew the truth. Raul was the real mastermind, the invisible puppet master pulling the strings. And in that moment, I realized that if I wanted to do something about it, I would have to be just as smart as he was, maybe even smarter. After that conversation in the bathroom, I started seeing Raul in a completely different light. Before, he was just the janitor, the quiet man who faded into the background. But now, every movement he made seemed loaded with intentions that no one else noticed. He had this remarkable ability to blend in, to look like a bystander in his own life. A tired old man with a friendly smile, always eager to help. He knew exactly how to play the game, how to be so invisible that no one would ever suspect him. I started watching Raul closely, always from a distance, of course. He seemed so normal, so harmless. He greeted all the teachers, cracked jokes with the students, and was the quintessential uncle figure of the school. The guy everyone respected but no one paid much attention to. He helped teachers carry boxes, replaced light bulbs in the hallways, and even chatted with parents during meetings. He was, without a doubt, the most innocent person anyone could imagine. And maybe that's exactly what made him so dangerous. The days passed, and I began to feel paranoid. Every time Raul walked past me, my body tensed up. He never said another word to me, never made any move that could be interpreted as a threat. But that only made me more uneasy. It was as if he were waiting for me to make a move, as if he knew I was teetering on the edge of doing something. Then one day, everything changed. We were in the middle of class when two police officers walked into the school. Everyone started whispering, and suddenly the hallway was buzzing with activity. The officers went straight to the principal's office. Nobody knew what was happening, but the rumors spread quickly. A few minutes later, the police emerged from the office carrying bags of what looked like evidence. Word spread like wildfire. Drugs had been found in the principal's office. The principal had been arrested. It was a bombshell. The principal was a pillar of authority in the school and the community. He was strict but fair, and everyone respected him. The idea that he could be involved with drugs was unthinkable. The teachers were as lost as the students, and the atmosphere in the school was tense and surreal. I was completely baffled. What was going on? Could Raul have had something to do with this? Why would he plant drugs in the principal's office? Was it revenge? A diversion? My mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. The next day, still confused, I went to my locker. When I opened it, my heart skipped a beat. Sitting on top of my books was a folded piece of paper. My hands trembled as I picked it up and unfolded it. The message was short but chilling. "If I can do this to the principal, imagine what I can do to you." A cold chill ran down my spine. My blood froze. Raul had made it abundantly clear that he was in complete control. Not only had he managed to frame the principal, but he had also found the time to remind me that I was nothing in his world. He could destroy me with a snap of his fingers. In that moment, I realized there was nothing I could do. I was no match for him. He was smarter, more experienced, and, most importantly, he had the power to ruin lives without anyone ever suspecting him. From that point on, I decided to stay silent. I didn't tell anyone what I knew. I didn't get involved. I just focused on making it through the rest of the school year without drawing any attention to myself. Every time I saw Raul in the hallways, I acted like he was just the same janitor everyone else knew. And he, in turn, continued to smile that friendly, harmless smile as if nothing had ever happened. It was terrifying how well he could pretend. When I finally graduated, it felt like a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I left that school and that town behind, determined to move on with my life. I never told anyone what I knew, and for a long time, I tried to forget. But sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I find myself wondering, did Raul keep going? Did he continue fooling everyone around him? Or did he eventually slip up and get caught? Now, years later, writing this on Reddit, I realized just how much that man left an impression on me. This all happened in the 90s, and I have no idea if he's even still alive. But one thing I know for sure, Raul was the smartest and most dangerous person I've ever met. He was a master at playing the game of invisibility, and in the end, no one ever caught him.